in terms of the Dwelling Place Learning Academy is something that's been 40 years plus in preparation. We are not introducing the school and opening the school in 2015 because other private schools have decided to change or not open or be open. So we're not taking advantage of the fact that 2 other schools in the last, 16 months or so have decided to close. We have been in 16 months in preparation of this and hundreds of hours of work, and we're going to reduce that down to a very small amount of time tonight. But it was all born out of a vision well over 40 years ago. Susan and I moved into the Valley. Most of you may know this, some of you don't. Moved into the Valley to run a minimum security juvenile facility behind the Cibola Indian Reservation in San Jacinto. And in doing so, and working with the juvenile court system and in the court system, we took upwards of 30 young, what we call young adults today, but teenagers, and put them in a Christian environment. And we put them in a public school system, and unfortunately, they were graduating some of those children we were responsible for to try to repatriate them back into society. They were graduating them from school, and we actually had students that couldn't read a newspaper. They could read a newspaper. It was at maybe first grade, second grade level. And I made a commitment at that point. As a matter of fact, we even started a version of a private school on the ranch. We had a 360-acre ranch. And I made a commitment at that time, even before we knew the church was going to open and start, which we started almost 40 years ago. I made a commitment to the Lord, and I said, we're going to find some way to provide a version of education that's going to help children not fall through the cracks, but be dealt with individually and on a one-on-one basis. So you're going to hear us share some things tonight that have come out of that vision and that purpose. So we have already been doing physical things to the physical property in preparation for this. We've already been, some of you already know, we put security fence around the children's facility. The entire property, 11.3 acres, has been designed with a school in mind. So this is not something we've just come up with in a few short years or months. Even this building right here is a gymnasium. It even has gymnasium-style lights in it because we have designed the property to facilitate a school, and that's what we're talking about tonight.
In consideration of your time, I'm just going to read this. My name is Steve Rook. I'm associate pastor here. My beautiful wife, Sue, is director of the kids' church. We have 3 children. Our youngest, Juliet, currently attends Cornerstone, or BCS. Most of my working background is in construction. I have a general contractor's license. I was formerly a superintendent for a large residential home builder. My wife and I were both laid off at the end of 2008, and in early 2009, I got my contractor's license, and Sue opened a daycare business, and she started homeschooling our children. So as Sue's business flourished and turned into a large daycare, my construction business was declining. So one summer evening, Sue and I were talking, and she was telling about the difficulties of finding and keeping a responsible daycare assistant, and on top of it, how was she going to find the time to homeschool our children as the next school year was quickly approaching. I thought to myself, hey, I could do this. So I asked Sue, why don't you hire me as your daycare assistant and I will homeschool the kids? When I first suggested this to Sue, the look on her face was priceless. And I can tell you, her response wasn't nearly as priceless as all of my friends. Daycare assistant and homeschool teacher, you? So anyway, after I talked her into it, I taught kindergarten, first grade, and 8th grade. Man, I set up class. I had the flag, we did the Pledge of Allegiance, Bible study, prayer, reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history, PE, field trips. I can't say it was the easiest thing to get out of the gate, but it was a labor of love, and soon we were full steam ahead, and I was loving it. When the school year was over, I thought, wow, I made it through the entire school year and loved it. Unfortunately, my teaching career ended immediately as I was called back to work at my old company. But I can tell you, I have the utmost respect for kindergarten teachers, for all teachers in general. It's not easy. I've seen how powerful a teacher can be in the lives of a child. And this is what drives my passion for this school, and it's a big part of why I'm here. I believe with the Holy Spirit-driven school, Holy Spirit-centered school, we will not only make a difference in the children's lives, the parents' lives, and the teachers' lives, I believe we will change the city around us. If you look around this sanctuary, if you haven't been here before, you will see the names of surrounding cities. We believe as a church and now a school, we are called to impact, pray, and serve those cities within a 30-mile radius. So I sincerely hope you will consider joining us. Thank you.
Well, I came late to this party. The Lord started talking to me about this about 25 years ago. And he told me, he went through a scenario of the time is short and there's not enough time to do 12 years of school and then 4 years of college. I need warriors and I need people in the field as soon as possible. And so he started working on me. One of the ways he did that was through the way he got way I got my education, the way the different kinds of jobs I had. I am a native son of Riverside, California. I spent 12 years in the Marine Corps and 10 years in the Navy. The Lord, again, these are all miracles. I have a Bachelor of Theology from Life Bible College, a Bachelor of Psychology from Azusa Pacific University, a Master's in Psychology and a Master's in Education, and a PhD from Jacksonville Theological Seminary. I have a certificate Evangelical Teacher Training Associate in the area of supervising church schools. I have been a licensed minister since 1979, and I was ordained in 1995. One of my most precious experiences is still ongoing. We have, some of you know, we have 3 children that are over 40 years old, and we have 3 children that are under 15. We homeschooled all 3 of them that are over 40. When in Florida at the time, there were a total of about 3,000 homeschoolers. There are now close to 180,000 just in Florida. So we were kind of on the cusp of what was going on. I had the opportunity while I was working on my PhD to be the administrator of a private school in Florida. I was the principal for 2 years. I also taught 9th grade English, 10th grade social studies, and 11th grade world history. I've taught Sunday school everywhere I've ever gone. And I've been in church since the Sunday after I was born. And so you can imagine how many times I got to teach Sunday school. Even when I was 16 years old, I was teaching the preschoolers. And on one event was Easter, I had 81 by myself. And we did great. The Lord just took over. So I provide education and training around the world to children and adults. I worked with Lockheed Martin for 15 years. I had the opportunity to either be the principal investigator or on the team of research and development, of learning that they paid millions of dollars every single year to just do research and development on how people learn. And we worked also not just with adult education, but we also worked with the Orange County school district there in Orlando, and also with the school district that's in Washington, D.C., where they have the ethnic background is some 108 countries. So the Lord has taken me lots of places to do lots of things, and now I'm here for such a time as this. I've had the opportunity to reinvent how people prepare for their tomorrows, and that's exactly what we're doing with this school. The first one is to provide emotionally, physically, and spiritually safe, Bible-centered, Holy Spirit-empowered learning environment. We're going to take on the body, the mind, and the spirit. We're going to provide both education and training, and those are not interchangeable words. Education is facts and concepts. The training is now you get to use what you've learned. And so one of the major pushes in everything that we do in this school is, and you'll hear me talk about it several different times, capstone events and community service. Capstone events are, we will now, after a certain period of time, during a certain phase, at the end of a phase, we will actually use what we have learned. And that goes from kindergarten through 12th grade. We will have capstone events. Some of them will be by class. Some of them will be the entire school at the same time. And the type of curriculum that we have selected will, in fact, enhance that. Now, identify and concentrating on the strengths, that is, the gifts and callings of each individual student, not their weaknesses. We're not looking for gaps. God has put into us from before the foundation of the world our destiny. And in our mother's womb, he talked to us and prepared us. And so this is one of the areas, the gifts and callings.
I want to chime in there. You know, when we talk about gifts and callings of the children, one of the things that I have pursued in this whole process is that there are 26 gifts of the Spirit in the Bible. 26. Most people focus on, particularly if you have a Pentecostal charismatic background, you focus on the 9 gifts of the Spirit. Word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discerning of spirits, tongues, the interpretation of tongues, prophecy, gifts of healing, gifts of miracles. But they forget the rest of the gifts. And they forget that there are gifts that we want to teach and show the parents how, and show with the teachers how to find the child's giftings. What's their talent? And that is born out of my own personal experience. When I was in grade school, I came out of 4th grade. I was held back because I had a reading disability. They didn't know what to call it at the time, but we call it dyslexia. And so I had that reading disability. I ended up being put in a class for developmentally handicapped children, educationally handicapped children. And of course that was an embarrassing event because I did not know, I knew there wasn't anything wrong with me. Not that there was anything wrong with any of the other children, but it was embarrassing to be in that class. I had a hard time reading. That teacher took the time, and I want to say this to you as parents and as potential maybe teachers, that teacher took the time to identify the fact he saw in me a mechanical desire. He saw me draw and do art and artwork, and I did things that were very technical. I just had a technical propensity. And he drew that out of me, and he encouraged me that when I went into 6th grade and I went back into the regular system, that I should focus on that. Little did I know that that would lead me to pursue an education in design engineering. And so he actually helped me as a teacher find out what stirred me, what my gifts were. And that's one of the things we want to do here in the school. It's not just teaching children how to read, write, and do arithmetic, but identify their gifts and their talents and encourage those giftings and their talents. So that's one of the reasons why we've kept the classrooms down to 16-1. 16-1, because the teacher cannot possibly give that kind of personal attention if the classroom is any larger than that.
One of the areas that school in general doesn't normally prepare you for, especially, and we look at especially from a Christian perspective, is that we are in the world, but we're not of the world. And my experience, like I said, I was raised in church, and my experience has been that that's where we lose our young people, is because we've taught them all they need to know to be in the world, but we haven't taught them how not to be of the world. How do you participate with the people around you and become friends with them like Jesus was accused of being friends of sinners and not take part of the sin? And those are the kinds of things that school should do, and those are the things, that's one of our goals here, to provide a curriculum that instills biblical knowledge, understanding, and wisdom while incorporating life skills in every subject from kindergarten through the 12th. And we're talking about, again, if we look at schools and the curriculums that most schools run, they will take you through knowledge easily. They will sometimes get you into understanding, but most of them never reach the place of wisdom. And there are a few across the United States and around the world that do. That is one of our goals. When they get out, they not only need to know what something is, why it is, but when it's necessary and what is the timing of when you use the things which you have learned.
We are not performing an experiment here. What we're proposing is a form of education that is already functioning and working. You're going to hear that it's it's not different, but there's an addition to how we're addressing the classroom, and it's already being done.
One of the things I really liked was as I was looking through this to see, do we really want to be called an alternative school? And I came across the Department of Education definition for what alternative school is. Educational activities that fall outside the traditional K through 12 school system, ... and then they are highly valued for their innovation and creativity. Even the world knows, okay? So we're not doing anything that's out of the ordinary in the sense of what's going on in the world. The world has used many of these, and you see this list here, has used many of these to try and do what we are going to do. And these are the things that only come from the Lord. And so if there's a school that's not led by the Lord, they're never going to find it. He that hath an ear, let him hear. And if they don't have the ear, they're not going to hear. So this is one of the reasons I brought that up, was because you will hear us called an alternative school, and that's okay, because that means we're innovative and we're creative.
DP Learning Academy difference. Smaller classrooms, I've already mentioned that, 16-1. I want to emphasize that again. Close student-teacher relationships. In other words, the teacher is going to be someone who can shepherd the child, take responsibility in certain terms, and give guidance to the child in a way that normally a teacher wouldn't be able to do. So we're looking for teachers that have a desire to really, really help form little personalities and little characters, and in cooperation with the parents. Decision-making skills, I know, Dr. Ken, you probably want to talk about that for a few minutes real quick. And how can we train these children so that they're better equipped? The world's moving so fast. The church isn't moving fast enough, but we're going to pick up the pace on that.
Absolutely.
So you want to add there?
The small, even the world knows that small sizes mean something. There are plenty of studies. One of them that's more recent is that they went through and took the difference between a classroom that had 22 students and a classroom that had 15 students. The differences they found were significant in both reading and in math. So the class size has a lot to do with how well we learn, and by interacting, and we'll cover that all out. As the pastor already testified, the close student-teacher relationship is extremely important. The studies show that the teacher-student relationship in early grades has significant positive or negative effect well into the secondary school. There are plenty of studies. The list was like 3 pages long of all the different kinds of studies that have been done. To be able to customize the lesson plan for each and every one of our students is the goal. Student decision-making and skills, there will be exercises and simulations based on the gifts to help identify and mature those gifts. This decision-making and skills will be part of the lesson plan. And the involvement of the school activities and around the community. I've already explained that there will be capstone events. Some of them will be by class, some of them will be be done by the whole school, where the school will in fact participate all together on a capstone event about things that we have learned over a certain period of time, whether it's a
community service,
or whether it's a drama that we do in our own school. But the whole school participates.
A diverse curriculum. It's unit study curriculum, central theme blocks, and it's important. Now, Dr. Ken is going to share some things real brief with that. I want to chime in here and say in peer guidance and parental involvement, we are going to be very specific to say, not to try to be exclusive and self-righteous in that, but the parents are going to have to agree to be involved in the education. The parents are going to have to agree. They're going to agree to be involved in this with the children. It's not going to be that we're going to babysit the child, give the children homework, and then they go home and do the homework and the parents aren't involved. We want the parents involved as deeply as we can possibly get them involved. There's no way, if the parents are not believers and do not attend a Bible-believing church, that we're going to be able to accept the children. Now, I know that sounds pretty harsh, but we don't intend for it to be harsh, but how can we possibly bring it up to another level of education, not only educationally, but spiritually, and the parents aren't cooperating with us at home? We want the children to be able to go home, work with the parents, and the parents work with the children. And if we create that unit, we can do something for the children that otherwise I'm not sure is being done, at least in our community. And so we need parents of children that want to be involved. If the parents don't, one of the parents don't go to a Bible-believing church, it doesn't have to be this church, obviously, but if they go to a Bible-believing church, they'll be accepted. If neither of the parents do, I'm sorry, but it just won't work. It won't work for the teacher, and it won't work for the student.
Some of you may not be familiar with the unit study method. A quick example is that, for instance, the main theme could be that day lessons, or that week about lessons about Jesus the Rock, which of course is Bible. Now, one class could build a rock garden and study Japanese culture, that's art and history, or study the different types of rocks, that's geology, or the process of erosion, which is science, or read books that deal with rocks and look up reference on rocks, which of course is literature, and so on and so on. And each of these could be assigned, of course, at the level grade that meets that student's need. The peer and guidance, there have been plenty of studies now that talk about the home to school relationship, the school to student relationship, the student to home relationship, and they are synergistic. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And if one of those fails, the other two will have a whole lot of difficulty in being successful. So we need all three, and that's why we have the peer guidance and parental involvement. The skills inside and outside the classroom, I'm going to cover that a little bit later, but the team building, community service, where the children actually plan the projects and put the thing together, and with guidance from the teachers. That's the part that we have in here about teachers being a guide. The teachers giving them guidance on what's acceptable and what we can do and maybe what we can't do. Children have a way of believing that anything is possible, and that is one of the things we don't want to squelch, because anything is possible.
With the 16-1, I keep going back to that because it just stuck. It's stuck in my brain that with the 16-1, if a child, for instance, is in second grade and is reading at a third grade level, that teacher is going to facilitate that child to be able to read at that level and accelerate, rather than hold that child back to the second grade. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but on the other hand, what happens if a child is in second grade and reading at first grade level? The teacher will have the capacity. We're looking for teachers that will be able to facilitate that child and have one who's reading in second grade, one who's reading in third grade, one who's reading at a first grade level, and handle them on an individual basis. That's really personal to me, because that's how I fell through the cracks. And so I see that as a major issue in math, in every other area. How can we facilitate these children where they're at and accelerate them on?
That's where the parental involvement will come in too, because then the teacher can communicate with the parents that the level that they're currently reading at needs to be improved, and they can spend time reading with the child and asking the child questions and spend time at home to get them back up to grade level.
Same thing with math or any other subject. So it's really, really child-friendly, very exclusive, and custom education. You're probably thinking, some of you may be thinking, well, how are you going to pull this off? Because for the next page, we're going to finances. This is not a business venture for us. Some people maybe think I'm a little crazy for saying this, but if we break even, we'll be excited. This is not a business. This is something we are doing, planning for the future. And so we're doing everything we can to hold the cost down, and also be able to pay our teachers a very competitive rate. Well, obviously, we can't compete with the public school system, but we are going to be competitive with what the teachers in other schools private schools are being paid right now in our community.
So I will say